With the majority of kinky connections being initiated in some capacity online, it's crucial to know proper DM etiquette as you evaluate a new potential play partner. So stay tuned today because I'm sharing 15 of the biggest red flags to look out for in DMs as you're talking to a potential new dominant online. If you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I'm Miss LX and I'm so glad you're here. If you enjoy this video, hit like and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you won't miss anything new. And if you find this content helpful, you can support the work that goes into this channel over at my Patreon, patreon.com/LXerotica. Alright, so the first red flag you'll find when talking to a pseudodom via DMs is they will often introduce their kinky desires before they will introduce their character. Now, this is a red flag because it essentially reveals at what priority level their kinky desires are, above the need to build rapport and safety. Thus, this is a dom type who will likely be entitled, selfish, and fail to build the deep devotion often sought by submissives. Pseudodoms will often also instantly demand honorifics. They very much have the mentality that all submissives should be submissive to them, regardless of ownership. So they will place that demand on a new subtype by requiring honorifics as proof of submission. Or they will pose the request as a test of a well-trained submissive. They feel entitled to honor and demand submission. They do not see a need to build devotion that organically births submission. And that is not what you want in a dominant. Pseudodoms may also use intimate language, ownership terms, or pet names without consent. Not only does this also reveal deep levels of entitlement, but this is violation and one that can easily cross the line into degradation. Submissives, just because you're submissive does not mean every dominant has the right to your submission. You choose your boundaries and limits, and you are under no obligation to be submissive to someone who has not earned your trust, built devotion, or formally established a dynamic with you. Another similar strategy fake or toxic dom types will use is to communicate in a patronizing or demeaning way. Again, submissives, just because you are submissive doesn't mean every dominant has the right to your submission, which includes speaking to you in a submissive, patronizing, or demeaning way. This tactic stems from chronic insecurity, masking itself as ego and entitlement. But that's just what this kind of game is. Toxic manipulation birthed from deep identity wounds. Do not tolerate it, submissives. You do not have to desire degradation play to be submissive. And you certainly do not have to accept it from a stranger online to prove anything to yourself or anyone. You are allowed to have limits, and they do not need to include verbal humiliation or degradation. The true evidence of an eager, entitled beta masquerading as a dominant online is the act of sending unsolicited dick pics or porn without consent. Now, not only is this illegal in some locations, it's lazy, immature, disrespectful, and downright disgusting, okay? This is the move of a desperate, entitled incel, not a secure and safe dominant. That move is essentially like telling a woman, this is my best feature and you should be impressed because I don't have anything else to bring to the table. Ladies, do not make yourselves a target of such men by acting pleased, aroused, or impressed by non-consensual porn or nudes. The toleration thereof does not make you submissive. It makes you a needy, desperate target. I hate to say it, ladies, but I want you to protect yourself. I want you to protect yourself by honoring yourself. Alternatively, the pseudodom might immediately request erotic photos or nudes via DMs. Again, you new submissives, or those of you struggling with confidence, codependency, or sub-frenzy, might be all too eager to respond to such requests as you hope to lock in a dominant's exclusive attention. But I would highly advise against it, even if you are an exhibitionist, and here's why. Because the best dominants are patient, and making such a request so soon is proof of the opposite, impatience and entitlement. They don't care about you. They don't value you. They just want to use your image to get off. Furthermore, if someone is going around immediately demanding erotic photos or nudes, it's far more likely that they're getting off on the power every yes gives them that they haven't earned. Again, protect yourself by honoring yourself. The fake or toxic dom might also quickly push for sexting, play, or sex. Now, there's nothing wrong with having these desires. There's nothing wrong with being excited about finding a compatible partner and playing with them. But the quick push for such things without first taking the time to negotiate and build some level of safety and trust is a big red flag, because it's a powerful indicator of how you, the submissive, will be viewed in the dynamic. As a means to an end. As nothing more than a wet hole or two, an object to be used, not a soul to be cherished. If you're into humiliation, degradation, pornophilia, or playing the role of a sex toy or slave, that's great. And that's not what I'm referring to in this point. My point is, if you are given no attention, no affection, no investment from a dominant to you as a submissive in this precious dynamic, if you're given no attention, affection, or investment outside of scenes, would you even have a desire to play in that way with such an aloof and selfish dominant? Another huge red flag is when a pseudodom expects immediate compliance and obedience to commands. This does not reveal a safe, patient, secure dominant who wants to build trust and devotion. This reveals insecurity, entitlement, and a need for control. And remember, there's a big difference between being in control of a situation and requiring control over people. Domineering is to make a submissive afraid of asking for the key. Dominance is making a submissive have no desire for the key. Dominance does not make immediate demands. Dominance woos. Dominance seduces. Dominance entices. And dominance is willing to take the time to do so. Pseudodoms will often also initiate conversations about collaring and ownership very quickly, as though they've decided the sub will be owned by them without bothering to consult the sub. This is also a sign of either a dom type with an anxious, preoccupied attachment style who will likely be highly paranoid, insecure, and jealous in their dynamic with their submissive. Or this is a sign that the dom type is highly narcissistic, entitled, and controlling, who seeks compliance to fulfill their desires, not a healthy power exchange dynamic with the submissive, who has their own free will and consent. And by immediately initiating such conversations surrounding ownership and collaring, the pseudodom is revealing their desire to dictate the dynamic, really without any negotiation or input from the submissive. And this is a red flag due to the nature of consent. Yes, a subtype who desires to be a 24/7 slave to their well-known and trusted master can revoke their micro-consent as they offer macro-consent. In other words, they choose to relinquish their ability to choose on a case-by-case basis due to the extreme levels of trust and intimacy and connection that have already been built. And in such dynamics, it's understood that there will not be many invitations for negotiation or submissive disagreement. However, that's in the context of a dynamic, like I said, that has long-term history, deep trust, and all the facets about the arrangement have been negotiated incredibly before macro consent was ever given. And speaking of negotiation, fake or toxic doms will not place the necessary emphasis on this vital phase of the BDSM cycle and will often fail to negotiate and instead will sneakily coerce the submissive into acts that they may not really desire. Now, this oversight or downright neglect can either come from a place of ignorance or malice, but the motive should matter not to you, submissives. Always demand thorough negotiation until you reach the point where you feel your limits have been fully expressed and you fully trust that they will be honored. Another insidious tactic of abusive or toxic players dressed in dom's clothing is to devalue limits by labeling them as closed-mindedness or lacking trust. Now, these types of manipulators will reason, if you really trust me, you wouldn't have limits. And they do so in attempts to shame the subtype into compliance while forsaking their limits and excusing authentic consent. The truth is, trust takes time. And if anyone attempts to shame you for your pace of building trust, they seek to control you through emotional manipulation, which often turns highly abusive. Run. Now, this should go without saying, but I need to point out that safe words are an intrinsic part of limits within BDSM. Any dom type who discourages or disallows the use of safe words is revealing a massive red flag. This type of structure is often established to provide the abusive pseudo-dom the ability to take full control over every desired aspect of the submissive's life while having a built-in defense system should the submissive ever try to assert their independence. Often the emotional argument used in such situations goes back to our last point. An accusation that if the submissive really trusted the dominant, if they really wanted to submit, if they really wanted to be a good and obedient submissive, they would have no need for a safe word. This is simply another controlling and abusive argument weaponized against submissives to gain compliance. When abusive, toxic pseudodoms seek only compliance in order to achieve a control-based dynamic where they receive the fulfillment of their selfish whims, they will not show interest in asking questions to learn about a potential submissive, primarily because they don't care. They don't want to actually learn about what the submissive wants, what builds devotion, and what makes the submissive feel seen and safe. They only care about taking on a submissive for what they can get from their submissive. A lack of curiosity and interest is very revealing, especially in initial DMs. If a potential dom is showing a lack of interest now, subtypes, it won't be any better when you're wearing their collar. And our last red flag to look out for when talking to a potential dominant online is inconsistent or flaky communication. All right? They will not be open communicators. They will ask one-sided questions. They will give one-sided information. They will not show up for chats as scheduled, and they may even ghost you for long periods of time between chats. All of this reveals how little value you have in their eyes. And I know that might be difficult to hear, but know this. Their actions do not define your worth. If you have incredible value, but a dom type doesn't see it, that's on them. You do not have to, nor should you, reduce your standards or shift your core beliefs to earn communication or connection. So, those are our 15 red flags from dominant DMs, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, drop a comment below and let me know. And be sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because next week I'm contrasting this list with 15 green flags of awesome dominance that you need to look out for the next time you're chatting with a potential new play partner online.